the massive Zealothi exploration vessel Eternal. Glory dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder that ran through its crystalline hull. Commander Veltash stretched his forearms and activated the main sensors, expecting to see empty space and virgin worlds waiting for his people to claim them. Instead, his sensor officer's voice cracked with confusion. "Commander, I'm reading multiple artificial structures. Large ones." Veltash's mandibles clicked nervously. "That's impossible. Our scouts surveyed this system 50 years ago. It was completely empty." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a sight that made Veltash's hearts skip a beat. Massive orbital stations hung in space, like glittering jewels, connected by streams of cargo ships moving in perfect formation. The third planet glowed with the warm lights of cities, while the fourth showed the geometric patterns of agricultural zones stretching across entire continents. "Sir," whispered his communications officer, "we're being hailed." A small, sleek vessel approached their ship. It was clearly alien in design, with clean lines and efficient curves that spoke of practical engineering rather than the ornate decoration favored by most galactic civilizations. "This is Captain Kim Day of the merchant vessel New Soul," came a voice speaking perfect galactic standard. "Welcome to the Harmony system. Please state your business and prepare for customs inspection." Veltash stared at his crew in disbelief. Customs inspection? In what his people's charts still marked as empty space? "This is Commander Veltash of the Zealothi Collective," he replied slowly. "We were not aware this system was inhabited." A pause. "Oh, you're with the Galactic Council folks, aren't you?" "Yeah, we get that a lot." "Follow me to Orbital Station Alpha. Harbor Master Park will get you sorted out." The human ship led them through busy shipping lanes, toward the largest orbital complex Veltash had ever seen outside the galactic core worlds. It sprawled across several kilometers, with docking bays for hundreds of vessels, massive hydroponics arrays, and what appeared to be entire residential districts, spinning slowly to provide gravity. As they approached the docking bay, Veltash could see workers moving cargo containers with casual efficiency. Most were human, but he spotted several other species working alongside them. A group of Montari were operating heavy machinery, while a family of crystalline traders examined goods at an open-air market. "Commander," his tactical officer reported quietly, "I'm detecting weapon signatures on several of those cargo vessels. Nothing aggressive, but they're well armed for merchant ships." The docking process was smooth and professional. Within minutes, they were walking through corridors that hummed with activity. The walls displayed advertisements in dozens of languages, offering everything from mining equipment to exotic foods. Children of various species ran laughing through the corridors while their parents conducted business in the background. Harbor Master Park turned out to be a middle-aged human woman with kind eyes and graying hair. Her office overlooked the main plaza of the station, where beings from across the galaxy mingled freely. "First time visiting Harmony?" she asked, offering them seats and what appeared to be some kind of hot beverage. "It can be overwhelming. We've grown quite a bit over the years." "How long?" Veltash asked carefully. "Have your people been here?" Park smiled. "Well, my grandmother was part of the first colony ship. That was about 90 years ago now. Started with just a few thousand people looking for a place to build something new." Veltash felt his confidence crumbling. 90 years. His people had been planning to expand into this region for over 2 centuries, always finding reasons to delay. "But our surveys showed this system was uninhabited," he protested weakly. "Oh, it was when we got here," Park agreed. "Beautiful system, good planets for terraforming, plenty of asteroid mining opportunities. We couldn't believe nobody had claimed it yet." She gestured toward the window. "That's New Busan down there on the third planet. Population about 8 million now. And that agricultural world you probably saw on the way in. New Jeju feeds half the sector." Through the office windows, Veltash watched cargo ships from dozens of different worlds, loading and unloading goods. The efficiency was remarkable. Ships that would take days to process at official Galactic Council ports were being serviced in hours. "You've built all this in less than a century?" his science officer asked, genuine amazement in her voice. "Had to," Park replied simply. "When you're starting from nothing, you either build fast or you don't survive. My grandmother used to say that while other folks were planning, we were planting." A young man entered the office, clearly Park's assistant. "Ma'am, we've got 3 more council survey ships requesting permission to dock." Same story as usual. Park sighed. "Send them to Bay 7. I'll talk to them later." She turned back to Veltash. "You're the 4th species this month to show up expecting empty space. I'm starting to think the council's survey department needs better record keeping." As if reading his thoughts, she pulled up a holographic display showing the system's development timeline. "Here's our registration with the Galactic Survey Office. Filed 91 years ago. Environmental impact assessments, mining permits, trade route applications, all properly submitted and approved." Veltash stared at the documents. Everything was legal, everything was official. The humans had simply been the only ones to actually do something while everyone else made plans. "We never received notification of human expansion into this sector," he said. Park looked surprised. "Really? We've been filing regular updates with the council for decades. Trade reports, population census data, diplomatic contact logs. Maybe they're backed up in committee somewhere." Outside the office windows, another wave of cargo ships was arriving, their holds full of goods from the bustling human colonies. The Harmony system had become a major trade hub, while the rest of the galaxy wasn't even paying attention. Veltash realized he was looking at something unprecedented in galactic history. While established civilizations had spent decades debating territorial expansion in committee meetings, these humans had simply loaded up their ships and gone out to build new worlds, and they had been very, very successful. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime had never seen anything quite like this. Usually, territorial disputes involved 2 species arguing over some distant moon or asteroid field. This time, the defendants' table was covered with stacks of legal documents that reached almost to the ceiling. Ambassador Lee Haon sat calmly behind the mountain of paperwork, occasionally sipping tea from a simple ceramic cup. She looked completely relaxed, as if she were attending a friendly neighborhood meeting instead of the biggest legal challenge in galactic history. Across the aisle, the prosecution team looked much more stressed. Morgeth, the righteous, the lead attorney for the Zealoty Collective, kept shuffling through his notes while muttering to himself. Behind him sat representatives from 6 different species, all claiming that humans had stolen their rightful territories. Counselor Prime Yextal called the session to order with a sound like wind chimes. "We are here to address the formal complaint filed by the Zealoty Collective and their allies. They claim that human settlements in 43 star systems violate established territorial expansion protocols." Morgeth rose to his feet, his blue skin shifting to a deeper shade that indicated strong emotion among his people. "Honored Counselor, this case is simple. The doctrine of technological precedence clearly states that expansion rights belong to species with superior development indices. Humans rank 47th on our technological assessment scale. They have no right to occupy territories designated for more advanced civilizations." He activated a holographic display showing the disputed star systems. Red dots marked human colonies, while blue indicators showed the various alien claims. These systems were identified for future development by species far more qualified than humanity. The humans have engaged in systematic claim jumping. Several alien representatives nodded in agreement. A Vorthan military officer stood up. "The asteroid mining operations in the Kepler 442 system were designated for our people 300 years ago. The humans had no right to establish mining colonies there. The neutron star research sites belong to the crystalline hegemony Under ancient territorial agreements, added another voice. Morgeth smiled confidently. You see, honored counselor, this is a clear violation of established law. We demand immediate human evacuation from all contested territories. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to Ambassador Lee. She set down her teacup and stood slowly, smoothing down her simple black dress. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. Honored counselor, I would like to present Exhibit A. A holographic display materialized above the center of the chamber. It showed the official Galactic Territorial Registry, a massive database that recorded all formal territorial claims filed with the Council. These are the official territorial claims filed for the 43 disputed star systems, Lee said. The display showed page after page of empty records, system after system marked as no claims filed. A murmur ran through the chamber. Morgeth's blue skin shifted to a sickly green color. The Zealothi Collective never filed formal territorial claims, Lee continued calmly. Neither did the Vorthan Empire. Neither did the Crystalline Hegemony. Neither did any other species represented here today. She gestured, and thousands of documents appeared in the display. These, however, are the formal settlement records filed by human colonies, all properly submitted to the Galactic Survey Office, all approved through proper channels, all filed decades before any other species showed interest in these systems. Counselor Prime Yextol leaned forward, his crystalline features reflecting the light from the displays. Ambassador Lee, are you saying that the humans deliberately targeted these systems? Lee smiled slightly. Not at all, honored counselor. We simply noticed that, while various species were discussing these wonderful star systems in council meetings, nobody was actually going to them. She pulled up another display showing meeting transcripts. Here we see the Zealothi discussing expansion into the Harmony system 230 years ago, and here, 150 years ago, and here, 70 years ago. Always the same conclusion. Further study required before proceeding with territorial claims. More transcripts appeared. The Vorthans have been planning to develop the Kepler 442 asteroid fields for over 3 centuries. Every 50 years or so, they form a new committee to study the possibility. The Vorthan representatives' tentacles writhed in embarrassment. The Crystalline Hegemony has been discussing neutron star research for 400 years, Lee continued. They've published 17 different papers on the theoretical benefits of studying these stars, but they never actually sent any research teams. She turned to face the alien representatives directly. Meanwhile, humans were loading colony ships and flying to these systems. We weren't trying to steal anything. We were just going to places that nobody else was using. Dr. Kim Min-jae, the human scientific advisor, stood up with a tablet in his hand. If I may add something, honored counselor, we always monitor galactic communications for safety reasons. When we heard about these promising star systems, we sent survey teams to investigate. If we had found existing settlements, or even basic territorial markers, we would have respected those claims and looked elsewhere. But you never found any, Counselor Prime? Yextol observed. Never, Dr. Kim confirmed. Just empty space and beautiful worlds, waiting for someone to care for them. Morgeth tried one last argument, but the technological precedence doctrine clearly states. Actually, Lee interrupted gently, it doesn't. Council Law 847.3, subsection J clearly states that territorial rights belong to the first species to establish permanent settlements and file proper documentation with the appropriate authorities. She gestured to her mountain of paperwork. All of our settlements were properly documented. All development projects included environmental impact studies. All mining operations obtained the required permits. We followed council law more carefully than the council itself. The chamber fell completely silent. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing embarrassment as they realized the truth. Humanity hadn't broken any laws. They had simply been the only species actually using the legal system, while everyone else assumed their superior status guaranteed them automatic territorial rights. After 3 hours of legal arguments that went nowhere, Counselor Prime Yextel called for recess. As the chamber emptied, Lee gathered her papers with the same calm efficiency she had shown throughout the hearing. The message was clear. While the galaxy's great civilizations had spent centuries talking about expansion, humans had been quietly building an empire. Colonel Zixumor had expected this investigation to take maybe a week. Find a few isolated cases of human claim jumping, document the violations, and recommend appropriate penalties. Simple military efficiency. 3 months later, he sat in his temporary office on the neutral station, orbiting Rigel 7, staring at a holographic galaxy map that made his head hurt. Red dots marked confirmed human settlements. Blue indicators showed alien planned expansion territories. The overlap was so complete, it looked like someone had dumped red paint over a blue star chart. "Dr. Park, this cannot be correct," he said, to the human woman sitting across from his desk. Dr. Park Ji-won served as the human liaison for the investigation, and she had been apologetically helpful from day one. "I'm afraid it is, Colonel," she replied, checking her tablet. "We've confirmed human settlements in 112 star systems across 17 sectors, all in areas that various council species had marked for future development." "Colonel," Zixumor rubbed his temples with 2 of his forehands. "How is this even possible?" Dr. Park looked genuinely sympathetic. "Would you like me to show you some specific examples? It might help explain the pattern." The first stop was the Kepler 442 system, where the Vorthans had planned to build mining operations for over 3 centuries. Their transport ship docked at a bustling orbital facility that handled more cargo in a day than most Vorthan ports processed in a month. Song Yunjin, the mining operations supervisor, met them at the airlock with a warm smile and a hard hat for each visitor. She was a cheerful woman in her 40s who treated the inspection like a friendly tour. "We've been here about 18 years now," she explained as they walked through the processing facilities. "Started with just my family and 2 other couples. Had to live in converted cargo containers the first few years while we built the basic infrastructure." Colonel Zixumor watched automated systems sort rare minerals with impressive efficiency. The Vorthans designated these asteroids for resource extraction 300 years ago. Song nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, we found those old survey markers when we arrived. Really faded by then. Good thing too, or we might not have noticed them at all." "You found Vorthan survey markers?" "Sure. About a dozen of them scattered around the asteroid field. Really old design, probably hadn't been maintained in centuries. We kept them in our museum now, along with the other historical artifacts we've found out here." Dr. Park cleared her throat gently. "Song, could you explain why your family chose this particular system?" "Oh, that's easy," Song replied. "My grandmother heard some Vorthan traders talking about these amazing asteroids during a trade conference. Said they were perfect for mining, but their people were still forming committees to study the project. Grandmother figured if the Vorthans were still talking about it after 200 years, they probably weren't in any hurry." Colonel Zixumor felt something cold settle in his stomach. "So you came here because you knew my people wanted this system?" Song looked confused. "No, sir. We came here because nobody was using it. If the Vorthans had been here working when we arrived, we would have found somewhere else. There are lots of asteroid fields in the galaxy." The next stop was even more embarrassing. The crystalline hegemony had spent 4 centuries discussing the scientific value of studying neutron stars in the Cygnus region. They had published hundreds of papers on the theoretical research possibilities. Dr. Choi Minho had been actually studying those neutron stars for 32 years. "The research station isn't very fancy," Dr. Choi admitted, as he showed them around. The compact facility orbiting the first neutron star. We built it ourselves from standard components, but it gets the job done. The station's laboratory was packed with sophisticated equipment that would have impressed researchers at any council, university. Banks of sensors monitored the neutron star continuously, while automated probes collected data from positions no other species had ever reached. Your papers on neutron star magnetic field interactions have been cited in 12 different journals, Dr. Park noted, reading from her tablet. Dr. Choi smiled modestly. It's fascinating work. These stars teach us so much about the fundamental nature of matter and energy. I can't believe nobody was studying them before we got here. Colonel Zixumor stared through the laboratory windows at the neutron star spinning. In the distance, the crystalline hegemony has been planning to build research stations here for 400 years. Really? Dr. Choi looked genuinely surprised. That's unfortunate. They've missed out on some incredible discoveries. We found evidence of quantum effects that challenged several established theories about stellar formation. But they had prior claim to this research site. Dr. Choi frowned. Did they? We've been filing regular reports with the Galactic Science Council for 3 decades. Never heard any objections. If someone else was already working here, we would have been happy to collaborate. The pattern was the same everywhere they went. Humans had established settlements, built infrastructure, and created thriving communities in places where other species had talked about expanding someday. Every human they met seemed genuinely surprised to learn that aliens considered these territories claimed. On their final stop, Colonel Zixumor found himself in the agricultural domes of New Jeju, watching human farmers tend crops that fed millions of people across multiple star systems. The dome supervisor, an elderly man named Lee Dongwoo, showed them fields of grain that stretched to the horizon. My great-grandfather planted the first seeds here, Lee said proudly. Took 3 generations to get the soil chemistry right, but now this world produces enough food to supply half the sector? The Montari Collective had designated this world for agricultural development. Colonel Zixumor said weakly. Lee nodded. Found their survey markers when we were preparing the first fields. Ancient things, really corroded. Must have been here for centuries, without any follow-up. As their transport ship lifted off from New Jeju, Colonel Zixumor stared down at the endless agricultural complexes. The investigation had revealed something unprecedented in galactic history. While the established civilizations had spent centuries debating expansion in committee meetings, humans had quietly built an interstellar civilization in the empty spaces between their plans. Dr. Park, he said finally, how many more systems are we talking about? She checked her tablet one more time. Well, Colonel, we've confirmed human presence in territories claimed by 17 different species. But honestly, we're still finding new settlements. The humans have been very busy. The combined fleet was the largest military force assembled in over 2 centuries. 47 warships from 6 different species hung in formation at the edge of the Sol system. Their weapon systems powered, but not yet targeting anything. Fleet Commander Verdith of the Zelathi had expected to find a primitive backwater world defended by maybe a dozen outdated human vessels. Instead, his sensors showed something that made no sense at all. Sir, his tactical officer reported with confusion in her voice, I'm reading over 300 vessels in this system, but most of them aren't military. Through the main view screen, Verteeth could see an incredible sight. Earth's orbital space, buzzed with activity that put the busiest council worlds to shame. Massive cargo haulers moved between industrial stations that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. Construction vessels worked on projects so large they could be seen from the edge of the system. Colony ships, the size of small moons, waited in organized lines, apparently preparing for departure to distant worlds. Those construction platforms, whispered his science officer, they're bigger than our entire home shipyard. A communication request came through on standard diplomatic channels. Admiral Quan Tejo of the Human Defense Fleet appeared on their screen, wearing a simple uniform without excessive decorations. Behind her, Verdith could see the bustling bridge of what appeared to be a very advanced vessel. "Welcome to the Sol System," Admiral Quan said politely. "I'm Admiral Quan. I understand you have some concerns about territorial disputes. We've prepared a diplomatic vessel for discussions if you'd like to dock and talk in person." Verdith had planned to negotiate from a position of strength, with his massive fleet as leverage. Looking at the sheer scale of human space infrastructure around him, he suddenly felt very small. The diplomatic meeting took place aboard the human vessel Sol Accord. As the alien shuttles approached the docking bay, their occupants got a close look at human engineering. The ship was elegant in its simplicity, with clean lines and efficient design that spoke of practical minds focused on function over decoration. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over Earth's orbital industrial complex. Verdith found himself staring at manufacturing stations that could probably build more ships in a month than his entire civilization produced in a year. "Impressive view," commented Ambassador Morgoth, though he sounded more worried than admiring. Admiral Quan followed his gaze. "We're proud of what we've built. Earth's orbital industry supports about 40 billion people across 200 star systems now. It keeps us pretty busy." 200 star systems. Verdith felt his confidence evaporating even further. "We're here to discuss your illegal expansion into contested territories," Morgoth began, trying to sound authoritative. Admiral Quan nodded respectfully. "Of course. Dr. Han, could you bring up the territorial data?" Dr. Han So-young, the human diplomatic advisor, activated a holographic display showing the disputed regions. She was a quiet woman who spoke carefully, as if she were explaining something to children. "I think there might be some confusion about which territories you're referring to," Dr. Han said gently. "Could you be more specific?" The display showed star charts with human settlements marked in green and alien claims marked in blue. The problem was immediately obvious. There were no overlapping areas where both colors appeared together. These systems, Morgoth pointed to several clusters, were designated for development by Council species under established expansion protocols. "I see the confusion now," Admiral Quan said thoughtfully. "You're right that these regions were mentioned in various council meetings, but designation and actual territorial claims are different things under galactic law." Dr. Han pulled up another display showing legal documents. "Every human settlement we established was properly registered with the Galactic Survey Office. We filed environmental impact assessments for every terraforming project. We obtained mining permits for every asteroid operation. We submitted trade route applications for every commercial venture." Thousands of official documents filled the holographic space above the conference table. "We followed council law more carefully than most council species," Dr. Han continued. "We had to, since we knew everyone would be watching us closely." Colonel Zick Seymour leaned forward. "But these territories were clearly intended for development by more technologically advanced species, were they?" Admiral Quan asked. "Because when our survey teams arrived at these systems, they found old marker buoys and abandoned research probes, but no active settlements or development projects." She gestured toward the windows, where streams of cargo vessels moved between the orbital stations. "Admiral, we humans have a saying. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. While other species were planning to develop these systems someday, we were loading colony ships and planting trees." The alien representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. "You have to understand," Dr. Han said gently. "We never intended to steal anything from anyone. We monitored galactic communications to stay informed about interstellar affairs. When we heard about these wonderful star systems that various species wanted to develop, we sent survey teams to investigate." "And when you found them empty?" asked Verdith. We assumed nobody wanted them badly enough to actually go there, Admiral, Quan replied simply. If we had found existing settlements, we would have moved on to find other systems. The galaxy is a big place. Through the conference room windows, another wave of colony ships was preparing to depart Earth's orbital shipyards. Their destinations were probably more unclaimed systems that various council species had been discussing for centuries. Vertath realized he was looking at something unprecedented. While his people had spent decades in committee meetings debating the theoretical benefits of territorial expansion, humans had built the largest interstellar civilization in known galactic history. "How many worlds do you currently control?" he asked quietly. Admiral Quan and Dr. Han exchanged a glance. "Control is probably the wrong word," Dr. Han said. "Human settlements operate quite independently, but our latest census shows permanent human populations in about 430 star systems." The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 430 star systems, while the combined territories of all the species represented in this room totaled maybe 60 systems. "And you did all this," Morgith said slowly, "while we were planning." Admiral Quan smiled. "Admiral, with respect, you weren't just planning, you were planning to plan. There's a difference between making decisions and making committees to discuss. Making decisions. The confrontation that was supposed to force humanity to acknowledge galactic territorial law had instead forced the galaxy to confront an uncomfortable truth while they had been talking. Humans had been building the future. 6 months after the failed military confrontation, the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the gallery, all waiting to see how the galaxy's power structure would change forever. At the center of it all, Counselor Prime Yextel looked older than his 800 years as he called the emergency session to order. "We are here to vote on the revised territorial expansion protocols," he announced, his crystalline voice echoing through the chamber. "After extensive review, we must decide whether to acknowledge current territorial realities or attempt to enforce theoretical claims against established settlements." In the human section, Ambassador Li Hian sat quietly with her delegation. She had spent the last 6 months answering the same questions over and over. How many systems do humans really control? Why didn't you ask permission? What are your intentions for future expansion? The answers had shocked everyone. Humans didn't just control 430 star systems. They had been quietly trading with species the Council had never even contacted. They had established diplomatic relations with isolated civilizations that Council surveys had missed entirely. They had built the largest trade network in galactic history, while everyone else was arguing about proper protocols. "The facts are simple," Counselor Prime Yextel continued. "Human settlements exist in territories that various Council species had designated for future development. These settlements are legal, properly documented, and in many cases have existed for decades." Morgith the Righteous stood up from the Zealoty section. "Honored Counselor, this sets a dangerous precedent. If we allow one species to ignore traditional expansion protocols, what prevents others from doing the same?" Dr. Han Soyoung rose to respond. "With respect, we didn't ignore any protocols. We followed them more carefully than anyone else. The problem isn't that humans broke the rules. The problem is that everyone else assumed the rules didn't apply to them." She activated a holographic display, showing the Council's own legal database. Council law requires formal territorial claims to be filed within 50 standard years of initial survey. The Zealoths surveyed the Harmony system 230 years ago. They never filed a claim. The Vorthans surveyed the Kepler 442 asteroids 300 years ago. She continued, no claim filed. The crystalline hegemony has been studying neutron stars for 4 centuries. No research station claims filed. The display showed system after system where various species had conducted surveys, held planning meetings, and formed committees. but never actually filed the legal paperwork required to claim territory. Meanwhile, Dr. Hahn said, every human settlement filed proper claims within 30 days of arrival. Every development project submitted environmental assessments. Every trade route registered with the appropriate authorities. Colonel Zixamore stood up slowly. As the lead investigator, his report carried significant weight. I have spent 4 months reviewing human expansion activities. I found no violations of galactic law. What I did find was the most systematic approach to territorial development in recorded history. He looked tired, as if the investigation had changed his entire worldview. While we debated theoretical expansion rights in committee meetings, humans were building actual infrastructure. While we formed study groups to analyze potential benefits, they were creating functioning colonies. The vote was closer than anyone expected. Many species voted to recognize human territorial claims, simply because the alternative was admitting their own bureaucratic failures. Others voted in favor because human colonies had become too economically important to disrupt. When the final tally appeared, the result was clear. The Council officially recognized human sovereignty over all disputed territories. After the session, Ambassador Lee found herself surrounded by alien diplomats with urgent questions, but the most important conversation happened with Worth and Colonel Zixamore in a quiet side corridor. I have to ask, he said, did your people really just stumble into all those systems by accident? Lee smiled. Colonel, we've been monitoring galactic communications for over a century. Every time we heard a species mention some wonderful system they planned to develop eventually, we sent survey teams, but they were never there when you arrived. No, they never were. We discovered something interesting about galactic civilization. Most species are excellent at identifying opportunities and terrible at acting on them. As they spoke, the main view screen in the corridor showed the departure of another human colony fleet from Earth's shipyards. 12 massive vessels, loaded with families, equipment, and dreams, heading toward systems that various council species had marked for development in the future. Where are they going? Colonel Zixamore asked. Lee checked her tablet. The Andromeda. Approach. Beautiful region, 17 habitable worlds, rich mineral resources. The Montari Collective has been discussing expansion there for about 60 years. And if the Montari actually show up, then they'll find human colonies happy to trade with them, share research data, and work together on development projects. We're not trying to keep anyone out, Colonel. We just don't wait for permission to build better lives for our people. The Colonel watched the colony ships disappear into hyperspace. Your people have changed everything. No, Lee said thoughtfully. We just did what everyone else talked about doing. The galaxy is full of empty worlds and untapped resources. There's room for everyone if people are willing to work together instead of fighting over theoretical claims. 3 weeks later, something unprecedented happened. The crystalline hegemony filed formal territorial claims for 5-star systems and immediately dispatched colony ships to establish actual settlements. The Vorthans announced a new rapid development initiative that bypassed their traditional committee system. Even the Zealothi began planning practical expansion instead of theoretical expansion. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species were racing to claim territory by actually going there instead of talking about it in meetings. The humans had taught the galaxy a simple lesson. While you're planning to do something someday, someone else is already doing it today. And in a universe full of opportunities, action beats discussion every single time in the end. Humanity didn't conquer the galaxy through superior technology or military might. They inherited it through the simple act of showing up while everyone else was still deciding whether to make the trip.